They signed up to serve their country and they ended up getting sick, but not on the battlefield. They are male U.S. Marines with breast cancer. Our special investigation coming up next.
How could they do this to me? After I've served the country faithfully, honorably discharged. How could they do this to my fellow Marines?
Tonight, we're bringing you an important investigation. An extraordinary group of men, some of whom defended this country, have developed a very rare disease, and all the men have a common link in their past. They fear it may be something in their common history that caused their illness. And Abby Boudreau of our Special Investigations Unit sat down with them.
These men are all victims of a terrible disease, a disease especially rare among males. They have breast cancer.
I never at that time knew that men could even have breast cancer until I was told by the doctor, and I was like, that's when I was shocked, like, you gotta be kidding me.
But beyond their rare illness, these men share another link. They're all retired U.S. Marines or children of Marines. And years ago, they lived on the same Marine base.
We come from all walks of life. Some of us have college, some of us blue-collar jobs. We're all over the country, and we're not. What is our commonality? Our commonality is that we all, at some point in our lives, drank the water at Camp Lejeune.
Camp Lejeune is the main U.S. Marine Corps training base in North Carolina.
How many of you believe that your breast cancer may be tied to the water at Camp Lejeune? All of you.
They've each had part of their chests removed by surgery. All suffered through brutal chemotherapy or radiation, or both. Some were told their cancer was terminal. These are just 7 of at least 20 former Marines or sons of Marines with breast cancer who lived at Camp Lejeune.
Mine traveled to my spine, my ribs, and my hip.
Peter Devereaux is 47 years old. He was diagnosed with breast cancer last year. He was at Camp Lejeune in 1981 and 82.
The difference with metastatic breast cancer means now there's no cure. So the average life expectancy is 2 to 3 years. So, I have a daughter at home, 11 years old, and you're in this thing and, and it like pisses you off, right? Being a man, I try to take care of my wife and my daughter. Now that I'm considered disabled because I can no longer work, I can't use my arms, you're having challenges,
Jim Fontella from Detroit fought in Vietnam and lived at Lejeune in 1966 and 1967. He was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1998. After surgery, it reoccurred, spreading to his spine and back.
I kind of manned up to it after a while and just expected to die, because once you have metastasis, bone mets, basically it's just a matter of time before you die. Luckily, I've already passed my due date by 5 years. I've outlived that death sentence that I got.
Mike Partain, the son and grandson of Marines, was born on Camp Lejeune 40 years ago.
When am I going to see my daughters graduate? I'm sorry. When they told me they had breast cancer and that it was serious, the first thing in my mind was, am I going to see my kids graduate from high school? Am I going to see my daughters married?
Partain has helped find and organize these men. Like most of them, Partain has no family history of breast cancer. He even got himself tested for the breast cancer gene.
And they were negative.
Breast cancer in men is far more rare than in women, with only 1,900 men expected to be diagnosed in the U.S. this year, as compared with about 200,000 women. Dr. John Kylick is a breast cancer surgeon at Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa, Florida. He's startled by the common threads.
Do you think that this raises any red flags?
Absolutely. When you have the average breast cancer patient for males is about 70 years old. So when you have gentlemen that are in their 30s stepping forward without a family history of breast cancer, that is alarming. And the question is why? Why is this happening to them?
Frank Beauvais, with the Federal Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, has been working to answer that question. He says the levels of contamination at Camp Lejeune were alarmingly high.
The levels of trichloroethylene were the highest I've ever seen in a public water system in this country.
Government records show from the 1950s through the mid-1980s, Camp Lejeune's drinking water was contaminated with high levels of chemicals and solvents. Some came from a nearby dry cleaner. Others were chemicals used on the base. The contaminants included trichloroethylene, or TCE, perchloroethylene, or PCE, and benzene, all believed to cause cancer.
Now, whether the exposures were long enough and high enough at Camp Lejeune to cause disease, that's the question.
The Marine Corps declined to be interviewed for this story, but said in a statement that it addressed the contamination as quickly as it was discovered, and that it has collaborated with the Toxic Disease Registry from the beginning of its studies to determine the extent of the contamination and whether adverse health effects may have resulted from it. This collaboration continues to the present day. For these men, collaboration isn't enough. They want answers, and they say they want help.
To have 20 men come from the same place, walking on the same dirt, drinking the same water. I mean, there has to be a link there somehow.
But so far, no link has been proven. And the Veterans Administration says without that link, it cannot pay for treatment. For these men, it's a bitter disappointment that leaves them angry.
Why anger?
Well, anger because the Marine Corps did this to me. How could they do this to me? You know, after I've served the country faithfully, honorably discharged. How could they do this to my fellow Marines?
And Abby Boudreau is here with me now. Abby, why is it so difficult for scientists to find a link here?
Right, well, first of all, you have to realize that this base is huge. It's 150,000 acres. And then you have to go back 20 or 30 years to try to piece this puzzle together. I mean, where exactly did these men live? You know, what kind of water were they drinking? Was the water contaminated? These are all the kinds of questions that scientists are going to ask and have to ask in order to find out the truth here. And that's what needs to happen in this case, and it needs to happen soon.
How seriously is it being taken, really?
It is being taken very seriously. Every single scientist and research that we talked to was alarmed. They said this is startling. They haven't seen something like this. You know, you have 20-some men who all have male breast cancer, who all lived at Camp Lejeune, who were young when they were diagnosed, who most of them don't have family histories. So this is a big deal, and these men just want to know, was it because I lived there? Was it because I drank this water? And it might take a very, very long time to find that out.
This is really terrifying. Abby, thanks very much, but we should mention there's a lot more to come here. Tomorrow, Abby is going to bring us part 2 of our investigation. Do documents indicate the Marine Corps knew about the contamination in the drinking water years before it shut down the wells?